Welcome back. It's your host, Dawood Bedrosian, with my favorite hour of the week, Real Sense Now. We have a very special guest for you, but before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit about what our show is all about. Right here on Real Sense Now, we bring all real estate and wealth creation strategies, insights, and of course, expert advice from the various experts that come on as guests on the show. As we see before us, there's one thing for sure: the housing market will always shift and change, always providing new opportunities and challenges with it. And our market today is no different. A lot of buyers and sellers are facing a lot of challenges, and we're here to uncover what they are, what's trending in our economy, and better yet, how you can navigate and create generational wealth for you and your family by listening to some of our expert advice that we have in order for you to make the most educated, best decisions for you and your loved ones. So, as in everything with life, the right knowledge, the right education can allow one to capitalize and seize an opportunity to create income. Add assets that appreciate over time, allowing the expansion of your portfolio and create generational wealth for you and your family. If one of you guys can walk away with this information and make a difference in your life, I feel like we've done a great job presenting this information to you. So get ready to crank it up because today we have a very special guest. He's someone that brings a lot of magic, is probably a good word since we are in Orlando, to the legal world of real estate. You've helped me out so many times. I'm really, really, really happy to have you on the show because you've been a guest on our show, I think 3 or 4 times. I can't even count anymore. Definitely been an old friend, probably one of my first friends here in Florida. I'm happy to welcome Nishad Khan of Nishad Khan Law Firm. Nishad, thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome. And I just want to say you're special too.
Oh, that's so sweet. I should have you on the show every week.
You don't
Nobody's
need
as
to.
nice as they are to that, like you are to me. Sorry. Anyways, Nishad, you have not only been a phenomenal attorney that's guided us and my clients through numerous things that I've sought your services on, but I've actually had you on the show because your insights as to what's happening in the market and how our buyers and sellers should navigate through it have been really, really, really insightful. You also teach at several of the real estate boards throughout Florida, and you're definitely always giving out valuable information so that realtors can do an even more professional job. And more importantly, you're advising your clients to ensure their own success in their real estate endeavors and their business endeavors as well too. So I have a lot of questions that I want to ask because I know this is going to be one of those exciting shows that people need to buckle up, turn up the radio, turn up the volume to really take in all this valuable information that you have. So, no pressure at all. I just want everybody to know a little bit about you before we get started and how you found yourself in the world of corporate commercial, real estate law, and all the other services that you provide.
So thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me back again. Wonderful job, by the way. So how did I find myself in this situation? I think I like to help people. I like to serve. I like to teach. And the position I have right now allows me to do all three. You can go back and look at all sort of different situations and experiences that put you where you are today. And I can't really tell you if that's, if it was something that was planned, but I can tell you that I enjoy helping people, and that's what attracts me to law.
What areas of law do you cover in your firm?
So I specialize in real estate. I deal with a lot of businesses and business problems, business issues. Sometimes it's employment issues, sometimes it's tax issues, sometimes it's legal issues. So nowadays, I think I find myself just trying to help people, companies, business owners get out of whatever situation may arise.
It's funny because I was at your office, and the word that came out of your mouth is so many situations going on. And when I walked in, it seemed like every room had one of your clients with something that you were working on.
Yeah,
So, and that was my way of coming in to say, I need you to be a guest on the show.
right.
So, listen, you definitely have your finger on the pulse for what's going on. You teach at various boards, so you really have a good sense of what's happening, not only in Central Florida, but what's happening throughout Florida. Florida has been a very interesting market because Florida, as we've known in the past, when the market crashed, was one of the top um, markets, including Texas, California, Las Vegas, Arizona, to really feel the hit, but was also one of the first states to reemerge by having more and more investors come into the market to scoop up properties at a really great price once upon a time. And we saw a second wave of that during COVID as well, too, when people wanted to relocate. And Florida, obviously, because of its open policies for what we were going through that time, became even more attractive, not only attracting people that wanted to relocate to the state, but actually move a lot of money from Silicon Valley, from New York, and has essentially cemented cities like Miami as being the top luxury markets in the country. But in the same accord, we've also seen a lot of pressure and stress from a lot of buyers that are facing affordability issues, that can't afford the high interest rate mortgage payments that they have to pay. It's almost doubled from what it was a year and a half ago, it seems like now. So the question that people ask me all the time is, how would you describe the state of the real estate market right now in Florida?
I mean, it's not just in Florida. I think the state of the industry is facing a significant change. Probably the most significant change in the past 10 years, maybe not longer.
Really? I know we've had the slowest real estate market in over 30 years. Talk to us about some of these changes. What are you noticing?
Let's start with some of the common ones, right? So, insurance is an issue. Hard to get insurance, getting much more expensive. People are getting
I think it's
dropped.
up by like 40% or something like
Yeah.
that.
And so that will obviously affect your investment. Um, Another big issue is the changes to the condominiums, right? Because of the Surfside accident where 98 people died, uh, the state of Florida enacted several new laws where condominiums have to fund their reserves and make repairs. In fact, on the way over here, I was speaking to an association attorney, and she was telling me how there's a condominium that's assessing $100,000 assessment for every unit.
Unbelievable.
And they're doing this because the law requires these repairs to happen by the end of the year, the reserves to be funded by the end of the year. And so the condominium changes are going to be significant, coupled with the insurance increase.
So it's funny because what we're also noticing in the same pattern, since we're talking about condominiums, is actually a reconversion back to apartments from, meaning they were apartments that were converted into condominiums. And we're seeing groups that are coming in that are seeing what this is looking like in terms of assessments. And a lot of the owners can't afford to pay for these assessments. So they're voting to terminate the condo. And this is why we're seeing the rise of apartments
Right.
everywhere.
So that's essentially what happened is they started off as apartments. I mean, this is why I love real estate, right? It's this cycle that always happens. So they start off as apartments and they were converted to condominiums
Hmm.
and they were sold as condominiums, but a lot of the developers deferred all of the maintenance and repairs 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And now, after you have this accident, laws have changed, and now everything has to be replaced, windows, gutter, everything. And that costs a lot of money.
That's crazy.
So you these homeowners, and it's, from my perspective, what I see is the retired, person who's worked from Puerto Rico, who's worked their entire life and living off of Social Security and has fixed income and has this condominium that they're living in as a widow after their wife passed away. is now being told they have to pay $600 in assessments every month. They can't afford it. They have no choice but to either let the property go into foreclosure or move. And sometimes selling it is hard because no one's going to buy a property where you have to pay these assessments. So
and
this,
and oftentimes there is no financing
right.
or
So
most.
this is a big issue. I mean, this story is in the Wall Street Journal. And so we're going to see this wave come. So that with the increase of the interest rates, with the insurance cost, and then of course you have the biggest change, which is the way that commissions are going to be paid because of these settlements that would entered into by the Association of Realtors and the class action plaintiffs. And so that's going to change the industry because now sellers are, they don't have to pay both sides. They can pay one side. And so all buyers are going to have to be represented by buyers agents with signed agreements. So this is going to change the way that real estate's handled. So I think when you have this many changes at one time, it's kind of like a tide kind of changing course, right? Because now everyone has to catch up. Lenders, appraisers, everyone who's touched by real estate has to adjust because of all these changes happening at one time.
It's incredible. You've touched on so many different topics that I was looking to speak to you about during the course of the show. And I think the information is so valuable because our viewers and listeners that are listening to what you have to say can definitely walk away with a lot of pearls here. What are the challenges that you're seeing on directly the buyer and seller side in this market right now? I know buyers are having a challenging time, like I said, with high interest rates, high insurance rates, trying to get into the right properties. Sellers are obviously having their properties sit on the market longer, so buyers have more choices in the market. And what I'm realizing is a lot of the investors are definitely resurfacing right now. I believe in the first quarter of this year, the investors accounted for, I think, 25%, if I'm not mistaken, of all the home purchases, especially in single family home category. And we're definitely seeing more and more cash buyers that are coming from other places, other parts of the country, other parts of the world, and investing and buying homes cash now. I would like to say that probably the last 4 or 5 transactions that I've done have pretty much been all cash transactions. Are you noticing that trend as well too?
The trend that I'm seeing is that people are thinking twice about buying or selling their home because of the high interest rates and a lot of the other uncertainty that's in the market. And so there's less movement of, owner occupied homes, single family homes, and there's more investors, commercial property transactions. That's what I'm seeing. But I definitely see a chill in the market for, your single family homeowner because they have a lot of times they're not going to get the price that they want. They're still stuck in 2023. Other times they've got nowhere to go, right? Where are you going to buy at today's interest rate? It's going to be expensive. So why leave the house that you are in right now to take a risk for something else? And so I think people are just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. Then, of course, this is an election year, which may change things. So I think that's a prudent thing to do because you want to just you don't want to make decisions that may affect you later on. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of these investors come in because they have the cash. They don't have to worry about the financing and they have the ability to negotiate.
So, talking about investors, many of our listeners are obviously interested in investing in real estate. Many of my students that I coach are interested in investing in real estate. My clients ask me about investments all the time. What advice do you have in this market for those looking to invest in the Florida market? What should they be looking out for?
And so that's a difficult question to answer because whenever someone asks me about investing, I first ask them why they want to invest. What is it that they're trying to achieve? What kind of returns are they looking for? What is their lifestyle? Are they prepared to deal with property ownership? You have to understand from my perspective, I see all the bad things that happen to people, right? The money they spend when a tenant doesn't leave or a building burns down or they miss something in the contract. So people have to be prepared for that. And once we get past those discussions and they say, okay, I want to invest, then You really have to ask them how involved they're going to be, right? Do they want to be someone who's going to be a passive investor, or do they want to be involved in the renovations, the negotiation of the leases? And so, based upon that, then you can pretty much determine what kind of asset is going to be the right asset for them. Usually ends up being multifamily because that's the most passive, but even multifamily comes with its issues. So I think the question starts with, who's the investor? What's their appetite? And based upon that, you can figure out, because listen, there's a lot of property out there. There's a lot of opportunity out there in every industry. And so you just have to be able to
You still
search for it.
believe that in this market?
Absolutely.
I believe it
Absolutely.
too. I've
Absolutely.
seen it with my own eyes.
There's an opportunity in every market. It's not whether this or that market. Opportunity comes to those who search for it. And so if you know where to look, how to look, and a lot of times it's not just looking, it's making an opportunity happen, right? The best thing is when you can make an opportunity and help everyone. That's the ideal opportunity. But a lot of times it's just finding a solution for someone who may need to sell or exit, and seeing if you can make it a win-win for everyone.
I'm going to give you a term I've coined, which is called an end investment, END investment. The reason why I call it an end investment is because I take the same client approach in discussing investments with clients in a way that uncovers what their goals are, what their lifestyle goals are. During the years leading after COVID, one of the hottest asset classes that people wanted to get involved with or in was to buy a short-term vacation rental property. And in my opinion, Orlando boasts some of the nicest resorts with the greatest amenities for people to take advantage of staying at an incredible 5 to 10, 12 bedroom house with water slides and lazy rivers and gym facilities and all the bells and whistles that you can enhance your stay without having to go to a park. This year, we've seen a shift in the buyers coming into that market for various reasons: inflation, recession, high mortgage interest rates. As a matter of fact, mortgages have decreased by, I believe it was 40% for primary residences and over 65% for second homes, which is a startling statistic to share with you. We've seen less travelers come to the Central Florida area just because of the stability that we are experiencing here. We have our neighbors upstairs in Canada. They're pretty much going through the same thing as well too. And we're just seeing more and more people kind of like sit by the sidelines, save their ducats for another time. They're traveling closer by, they're traveling with their families to other places. And just like you said, I have more investors that are reaching out to me looking for multifamily opportunities. So let's talk about multifamily. Why is multifamily an attractive asset to invest in today's market?
Multifamily is a good entry level asset because you can usually get into a small multifamily, then from there hop to a bigger multifamily, then from there possibly hop to a retail component, or a property that has a retail component. So it's a good entry level. There's great financing out there for multifamily, and it's less involvement, right? You can essentially hire a property manager and collect a check. So I think it's the easiest asset class to get into if you're dabbling in commercial real estate. Now, owning multifamily in Florida is it's great because of how quickly Florida is growing, how less affordable the homes are, and so a lot of people are going to rent. I think the generation that is coming up are more renters and less homeowners. And so it just makes sense to have multifamily in a state like Florida, but multifamily is, is pretty expensive right now. So it's hard to find a good deal in multifamily.
What's interesting is, and I don't know if you know the statistic or not, but over 60% of the population in Orlando rents, doesn't own.
Believe it, yeah.
Crazy, right? Well, there you have it. This wraps up this first segment. I don't want you to go anywhere. We've got a lot more insights from Nishad Khan coming right up. You're listening to Real Sense now. And of course, if you have a real estate question, all you have to do is reach out to me by visiting my website, realsensenow.com, or better yet, send me a direct message on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Am I missing any of the other ones? I don't know. TikTok, whatever. Just type in my name, Dawood Bedrosian, and I'll be more than happy to help. Remember, no matter if the real estate market trends upwardly or downwardly, real estate always trends upwardly over time. Catch you after the break. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Real Sense Now. It's your host, Dawood Bedrosian. Today, we're diving into the world of real estate and business law with the expert of experts, Nishad Khan from Nishad Khan PL, a dynamic firm based in Central Florida. And he's here to uncover the intricate layers of what's going on in the world of real estate and business. You mentioned in the first segment the changes that are happening with regard to all the articles, all the stories we've been hearing about at NAR. I know you travel throughout the state of Florida and educate a lot of the realtor boards about various areas of law, ethics, and so on and so forth. Can you speak to us about the recent announcements of the settlement by the National Association of Realtors and how it stirred a considerable conversation within the industry as to all of the changes that are happening, that we don't know about, that are going to happen? Share it, because it's the question that is literally asked to me the most. What's going on with this and what should we expect? Does that mean sellers don't have to pay buyers' agent commissions? What is the whole case about?
Sure. So, first off, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. There's been other class action lawsuits against the Association of Realtors that resulted in some significant changes. And so for those of you who don't know, there was a lawsuit filed in Missouri, I believe, against the National Association of Realtors, as well as several other realtor associations and brokerages, in which the plaintiffs were claiming that there was a antitrust violation by the way that the real estate industry, the Association of Realtors in particular, were handling commissions. And so, so for most of you, just to give a basic explanation of how it works, a seller will sign a listing agreement with an agent to sell a house. The seller agrees to pay the agent a certain amount of commission. The agent in that agreement says, okay, but you also agree, seller, that I can share my commission with an agent who finds a buyer. So the seller is actually paying the buyer's agent commission. And the buyer's agent is representing the buyer in the buyer's interest, right? So that's really the crux of the issue. And so that's, the lawsuit was filed because of that. And the plaintiffs won, and it was in I believe an $18 billion judgment or $8 billion judgment. It was significant.
If it has a B, it's a lot of money.
All right. And so because of that, the Association of Realtors entered into a settlement agreement. And as part of that settlement agreement, they agreed to change the way that commissions are handled. And so before, in order to place a property into the MLS, the seller had to agree to share a portion of that commission, the listing agent's commission, with the buyer's agent. Now, the seller can say, I'm only going to pay my agent. Buyer, if you have an agent, you have to pay their commission. And so that's going to change things, because now if I'm buying a house and I have an agent, I have to pay them. And so that means I want that agent to perform, right? But I'm also going to negotiate how much I'm going to pay them. And then when a house is found, then, if the buyer's going to get financing, how are they going to cover the cost of the commission and the cost of the loan?
And that's the question that all buyers are asking right now.
Right.
When buyers are struggling to simply come up with a down payment and closing costs and purchase a home at higher interest rates while the prices are on the rise, how are they going to go about doing that?
That's my point. This is why this is going to be it's going to be a significant change in the industry, because how are they going to do it? The lender's not going to cover those costs. How is it going to affect the homes? You have some people that say nothing's going to change, and I hope that's the case, that everything becomes normal. But just thinking through it practically, you have to ask yourself, because the way that the settlement reads is that an agent can't even show a property to a buyer unless there's a written agreement in place. So for an agent to represent a buyer, there has to be an agreement. And that agreement has to state how much that agent is going to charge if the buyer buys the house. And so there's going to be a lot of negotiations, a lot of contracts, and you have to ask yourself, how does that affect a buyer? Are they able to afford the house and the commissions? How does that affect the seller? You're only going to have one agent on one side. There's a lot of changes that are going to come because of this.
I think that there's a lot of positive points to discuss amidst all of these changes. On the buy side, I think it really creates transparency in both the buyer's expectation and the buyer's agent's expectation of what their responsibilities and duties are. I was reading another article that, this wave can see the rise of fixed commission brokerages that pop up and say, hey, I'll only charge you a flat fee, or 1% or 2% or 3%, or whatever the case may be. And that would be something that, could see some more legs as we move forward. But I think the reality of the situation is also this. A lot of these media outlets have basically said, gone are the days of 6% commission. First and for all, there was never, ever a fixed 6% commission. Commissions were always negotiated, and they tend to follow market trends. In hot markets, you see the general commission rates drop, sometimes to the 4s, sometimes to the 5s, and 99.99% of the time, they were shared with a cooperating broker at the same time too. So when people say, it's a fixed 6% commission, you're not going to get paid that was never the case. That was one of the things that, for many of the guests that have come on the show, they needed to kind of like demystify or shed some light on what that looked like. That's one part of it. Another part of it is, in a market where sellers have their homes sitting on the market for over 50 days and they're not getting the action like they did during the frenzy that we saw a few years ago, they're going to be forced, one way or the other, to encourage or entice more buyers to come and see their homes by maybe offering a concession, a compensation to the buyer side to help with the transaction, so that they can get more buyers in the door. Do you foresee that happening as well too?
I mean, let's go back to your first point. I agree. There was nothing that said it had to be a certain percentage, but it was standardized and it was presented in a way where it made it seem like that's it, right? And that's just, most agents and brokerages were charging the same amount at the same time. And that's just, that's, and the way it was presented. So I think that was really where it became a problem. Regarding sellers incentivizing buyers, yeah, I think is if interest rates stay high and insurance rates stay high and assessments go up, the sellers are going to have to offer some sort of concession to a buyer to help them with their closing costs, whether that's loan, title, or commissions.
So we can't use the word commission anymore, right? It's compensation now?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been compensation. I don't know about using the word, but yeah, that's the right way to call this compensation.
I've seen the shifts happening so far. It seems like it's business as usual until July, right? August.
Yeah.
And what are we expecting to happen in August?
I think that there's going to be different forms that people are going to be using. You're going to see a lot of changes in the code of ethics, of course, and the contracts and your listing agreements. But then you'll see a lot more brokerages listing the properties on their own websites, because the settlement agreement states that a brokerage can offer commission to the buyer's agent if they list it on their own website, just not on the MLS. So I think there's going to be a shift of how properties are going to be marketed and how they're going to be searched and found. But those changes aren't going to happen on August day one. It's going to take time to transition.
Do you think, based on what you said, that prop tech companies like your Redfins of the world that have or Zillows of the world that have a brokerage outfit, or agents running around showing properties and so on and so forth, do you think that's going to make these types of brokerages or these types of portals the more desired place for buyers to go and start searching for properties and sellers to list there first?
I mean, I think that if you just look at the way this world is heading, right? It's a matter. Everything is becoming more and more convenient, and so one of the least convenient thing to do is go see houses on a weekend when you want to stay home with your family, right? Or show houses or sell your house. So if that can be uh, if that can be transferred to online, where a buyer doesn't have to have that much human interaction, I think that's the way we're heading, especially with the way that AI is entering into the real estate industry as well.
AI is definitely disrupting our industry in a lot of ways. I think positive for the most part. And I think if we end up adopting these new technologies, it's going to help simplify not only the buying process in terms of selecting homes based on preferences or whatever it is, but at the same time, also start to streamline the old ways of doing things to become a lot more efficient. Have you, what changes are you anticipating in terms of the technology side that buyers and sellers can take advantage of with these shifts that are coming in order to help buy a house or better yet, sell a house?
There's absolutely going to be more information that's going to be online about the property. There's going to be more information about the associations. Now there's requirements where associations have to have all their documents online. So I think that buyers are going to be able, or are going to have access to more of the material that they need to conduct a proper due diligence and learn about the property than they ever had before. And it's going to be easier for them to get that information.
And what advice would you give to the real estate agents out there that are also trying to navigate through these changes? I know you've talked about different forms that are coming up. What can we as professionals expect to see ahead of these changes that we're expecting?
I mean, if I'm an agent right now, I would roll up my sleeves, embrace the change, and educate myself as much as possible, prepare myself as much as possible, be ahead of everyone else, because you and I both know there's going to be a small percentage that embraces it and just keeps
Goes for it,
rolling,
yeah.
and everyone's going to stumble, and then there'll be a percentage which doesn't even know the change exists. So I would much rather be in the front of the pack so that I have a head start. And that's what I would be doing, is preparing for some of these changes.
For my realtors listening, if there's a piece of advice that I can share, and you don't have to be a realtor, you can be a business owner of any kind. If you're going to adopt any kind of technology, including AI, if there's one thing that I would highly recommend, is your ability to learn how to passively prospect your clients. What do I mean by that? Video is a game changer when it comes to communicating valuable information about the changes that are happening in our market and how you disseminate this information to buyers, sellers, viewers that are looking to adopt your product or service, or better yet, gain more knowledge from you, in essence, making you the thought leader in your industry, and better yet, the trustworthy person that they have already prospected themselves. When you communicate with people through video, they already know who you are. There isn't an interview process that you need to go through like you would when you're listing the house. They're like, listen, I know what you do. I got a listing that was over $2 million. If I tell you how I got it, I was amazed by it. And it only encouraged me to do this even more, which was, I saw your videos. I love the way you present properties. I love the way that you're communicating this information to people, and you're reaching audiences far and wide. You're sharing this information on the radio, on your podcast, on all of your social media platforms. You're my guy. As a result of that, I have another property that they're also looking to list at over $2.5 million. Guys, video is the game changer. Buyers are looking for information. They need to work with reliable, trustworthy real estate professionals. I'm going to underline professionals because there's a big difference between going to any regular realtor and going to someone who knows exactly what they're doing. The same thing with my guest today. You can get legal advice from anyone, but you really want to work with the best of the best. And this is why, Nishad, I'm blessed to say thank you for being a part of my team, because your knowledge, your wisdom has definitely made a lot of my clients' experiences even better. Nishad, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
Call my office, 407-228-9711.
And what's the website?
www.nishadkhanlaw.com.
You heard it from Nishad himself. It's your host, Dawood Bedrosian. Stay tuned, because when we come back, we're going to dive in even deeper, asking Nishad more about what's trending in our real estate market. Catch you after the break. And we're back for our final segment with my old friend Nishad Khan from Nishad Khan Law Firm. And we're going to turn the tables around. In the break, we decided Nishad's going to ask me some questions. So go ahead, Nishad. Ask the host the questions that you want to ask.
Do you regret not starting this podcast earlier?
Yes.
Why?
Because I wasn't quite sure that people wanted to hear what I had to say when it came to real estate. And I have to say it was a serendipitous turn of events that allowed for this to take place. It was COVID. We were all stuck at home. I thought it would be a really great idea to get on someone else's podcast. And as a result of that, the girl that I was asking happened to be one of the sales managers at the radio show that you're listening to right now. And they're like, hey, we're going to give you your own hour. And I wasn't quite sure about that, because once again, I didn't know that I had an hour to talk about anything that would add value to listeners and viewers out there. I jumped on Justin Clark's show, which was a great show, great morning show, and very good lawyer as well, too, dear friend of mine. And he really kind of helped me get the feel of how to do one of these things. I actually really enjoy it now. I think we're going on our end of the third, going to the fourth year. And this podcast and radio show in many ways has been a game changer for me. It has allowed me the opportunity to take on more speaking engagements, and better yet, communicate to hundreds, if not thousands, of investors over the course of the last few years. Our social media channels have also increased in terms of its viewerships or subscribers to the show. Our YouTube channel is taking a life of its own. And as a result of that, I think you have a lot of people that are, sitting in the sidelines, watching what you do. And sometimes you feel like you're in an echo chamber, just sharing the information about what you are noticing, what's trending in the market. And you just want to share that information and hopefully bring in some really incredible guests that add a tremendous amount of value. But I like this question because taking the plunge and actually doing this has allowed me the opportunity to actually reach more people, more listeners, more viewers. And it's really propped up my business in so many different ways. It's allowed me to, as I've said before, be a thought leader in this industry, be someone that people come up to. And even though I feel like, maybe oftentimes not a lot of people are listening, and I'm sure there's over 100,000 people listening to the show and watching online and stuff like that, I think what ends up happening is that, as I said in the previous episode, is that people start to screen whether or not they want to actually work with you. And in many ways, doing this has really been something that I've been really interested in doing more of, because A, I enjoy communicating the information. B, I really like doing these video tours and these property tours that everybody likes to come out and watch and check out. And more importantly, these podcasts and these radio shows have allowed me to get a lot of phenomenal guests to come on, authors of books like my friend Levi, who's got the book called Passive Prospecting, people like you who are shaping and changing the way realtors conduct themselves in the world of real estate, or better yet, investors, buyers, and sellers navigating through challenging processes, and you're there to resolve their issues. We've had a lot of celebrities that have come onto the show. We've had my dear friend Shanna Gatanis, one of my favorite female guests that I've had on the show. And the reason why I enjoy her so much is because she's always doing something incredible, whether it was designing two of Jeff Bezos's, I don't know, $60 million condos in New York, or, a young investor, 26 years old, Myron, who started off and in a 13-month period ended up acquiring 26 properties. So we get to share these stories and really add value. And my hope is that if one person can be inspired by this and make a change for themselves, whether it's to adopt some of these strategies that we're having in their own business, it doesn't have to be a real estate business, or better yet, if we're able to add value by helping someone listening, whether it's through buying or selling a property, or even guiding them, or even being inspired by what we do, my job is done. I've served my purpose.
Well said. I'm very proud of you of what you've done. I've known you for a very long time, and it brings joy to my heart to see the great things that you have accomplished.
What I think your calling should have been was the late night radio host, because with that sultry voice of yours, I'm either definitely going to be put in a better mood, and talking about real estate is definitely not that mood. I'm not saying you do anything for me, but that voice, I'm sure the female audience out there will definitely enjoy your soft-spoken tone when you're conveying all your valuable information.
I was a big fan of Barry White.
Oh, I'm sure. Hey, listen, I always said to myself, if I could speak the way Barry White sang, I would literally sing all of my words all the time. Wouldn't work really well in the courtroom, I think, but
probably not. So where do you see this going? What's the end?
I don't know what the end is, but I know that I'm enjoying the process. And I think the process is, they say trust in the process, or commit to the magic and the rest will follow. Those are words that I live by. And I really don't know. I mean, I've had the opportunity to jump on several TV shows, several other podcasts. That's opened up a lot of doors. I really enjoy collaborating with a lot of people. It's funny how a lot of people are actually hesitant to come on because they don't like the way they look. They don't like the way that they sound. And I'm like, listen, you got brought into this world this way. This is how people see you. So unless you want to get locked up in a room and not come up, you better come and communicate what you have to say. I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned this year, and this is something that I find fascinating. So listeners, listen up. Myron Golden did a video about how you can make your annual salary in a month. And he broke it down in a very interesting way. He said, if you're trading time for money, you're limited as to how much you can make based on essentially your output, right? The next level up would be unifying a group of people. Maybe you're managing a group. Maybe you're a project manager. Maybe you have a team underneath you. And yes, you have the potential to make more money, but you're also capped at what you can do in terms of time and resources, and better yet, output. So, you can get a managerial job, but I mean, what are we talking about here? Somewhere in the hundreds, low hundreds, 200-300, whatever the case may be. Where do we go from here? Today, more than ever, the real game changer has been all of these platforms that exist so that people can connect with whatever their interest is. And the game changer is to be a communicator. Being a communicator in today's world, it can turn you from a millionaire to 100 millionaire. And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of people out there that have communicated a great idea. I heard about this guy who used to make videos about butter, different types of butter. Every day he'd come up with his own new butter, whatever it may be. Truffle butter, this butter, caramel butter, roasted red pepper butter. And he went viral. Guess what he ended up doing? He made his own butter, and I think in the first month or so sold like 100,000 units. And as a result of that, has a new business that he can, generate based on his passion. And we're starting to see that more and more. There's a lot of people out there that, if they can combine their passion, two passions together. I don't know. You love dogs and you love doing do-it-yourself stuff around the house. Have your dog in the video and start putting out videos, because there's people out there that share the same interests. I don't care if it's anime or gaming or crypto or whatever your interest is. We live in a world where it becomes easier to connect with people all over the world based on whatever your interest is. And you too can become the expert in that space. And God knows, offer coaching lessons, write a book, create a product, merchandise. It doesn't matter. You can create a following, and that's what communication allows you to do. But if you really want to make a lot of money, what I've come to realize is that income follows assets. Not my words. I definitely took that from the clip, but it was phenomenal. Because wealthier people invest in assets that have one purpose and one purpose only, which is you put them in the maternity ward and their job is to make babies, investment babies, cash flow. And I think for the listeners that are listening to this, if you can take one thing away from everything that I've shared in this monologue that I've gone on, or this rant, it's become a communicator. Don't be afraid of doing a video to share your passions or your interests. It's probably going to suck, but keep at it, because you're just going to get better with time. And then more so than that, if you're trying to create a massive change and become a real disruptor in your industry, communicate that message. And if you want to go out and make a difference to create generational wealth for your family, stop buying useless stuff and start investing them in assets that actually produce cash flow for you. And there you have it, folks. It's your host, Dawood Bedrosian. The tables have turned. Nishad was asking me all the questions. This was a little refreshing to actually have to answer them on my own show. Nishad, thank you for being a guest on my show once again. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the website that they can reach out to?
www.nishadkhanlaw.com.
I don't think anybody say www anymore. So just nishadkhanlaw.com. Thank you for listening to another Real Sense Now episode. It's your host, Dawood Bedrosian, and I'll catch you every Saturday from 11 to 12 right here on Florida Man Radio.